What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImmacSports.
Instagram is also at Immac Sports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 259. And in the beginning here of this episode, we are going to talk some college football. We are going to talk a little bit of baseball. Who are the players of the week? But really, there's one goal in mind with this episode, Kyle. It's that time of the year.
It's time for the full, in-depth NFL season preview. Our little monologue, little title for it. We're going into year 6 of the NFL on the podcast, which is cool. I know for the first year we didn't get to do the full in-depth NFL season preview because we did it after the first week of games. So this is the 5th time that we have gotten to do one of these episodes of the NFL season preview. Similar to our baseball ones, this is like one of the best episodes of the year. You just get to spill out your guts, and you can't be wrong yet, unless you're picking the Cowboys to win the Super Bowl, then you will be wrong. But anyways, let's get right into it. Let's get into the opener because we got a lot to get to today.
Yeah, well, like you said, man, week 1, you're going to be a little off. That's exactly what happened in college football for both of us. Both of our picks, Clemson and Texas, lose in the first week. Both of our Heisman picks, Arch Manning, Jeremiah Smith, have bad weeks, but it is a very long season. I mean, let's get right into those 2 games just to start things off. Ohio State at home, they beat Texas. I wasn't necessarily surprised about that, but they completely shut down Arch Manning. Matt Patricia's defense is unstoppable. I just had a feeling they were just going to refuse to lose that one at home in front of the home crowd. Later that night was LSU Clemson, another crazy defensive battle, 2 of the better defenses in the nation, but also elite quarterback prospects. Nussmeier looked the part in that one, got to be an early favorite, along with Lenoris Sellers for the Heisman so far. Boise got their ass beat on Thursday. I wasn't expecting a playoff run, but this one just really proves right there, if you don't have the money to bring in the coaches and the transfer guys, you're just going to get completely toasted by the teams in the South. And unfortunately, it looks like Boise's going to have a year off. Got completely outcoached. Not as bad as Bill Belichick did on Monday night. They get clobbered by TCU by at least 30 points. They look really bad. Nothing like the Deion Colorado teams of the past couple of years. And those weren't even the biggest upsets that we saw. Number 8, Alabama, just could not do anything on offense against Florida State. Mike Norvell and Tommy Castellanos, they got them looking like Kyler Murray out there. So just overall, fantastic first week. I didn't even mention the Notre Dame-Miami game. Carson Beck looks like he's back in that offense too, at least when it comes to winning college games. Just a fantastic week. But you were actually at one of these games. How did it go, Kyle?
Yeah, it wasn't my sole reason for being in Arizona. Obviously, I had some other stuff going on. But I did get to see Arizona State number 11 play against NAU in their opener. NAU FCS school, so obviously, not expecting much there. It wasn't the greatest game from Arizona State. Winning 38-19. We kind of got close in the third quarter. But the 2 players that you really come to watch if you're watching ASU football right now are Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson. They both had very good games. Sam Leavitt goes 25 for 39, 257, 2 touchdowns, an interception, as well as 2 rushing touchdowns, including a 52-yard scramble to the end zone, which is a fun play to watch. And then Jordan Tyson, likely going to be, like a top 10 pick in the draft this year, projected player right now. Very much got the Jamar Chase treatment for wide receivers in this game. 12 receptions, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. His first touchdown came on a screen pass. And as soon as he got the ball, I was like, yep, he's scoring. Just both those dudes combined. Definitely a cool thing to say. 5 years from now, so both those dudes end up being something in the NFL. So yeah, I got to see him play in college, which is pretty cool. So good luck to them. Good luck to ASU, and I'm happy I'm not in 105-degree weather anymore because that part sucked.
Yeah, I'm sure about that one.
Anyways, moving into player, pitcher, rookie of the week, the last baseball thing that we will cover in this episode, I believe. Let's get right into that. Player of the week, Skyler, who'd you choose?
Willy Adames has been turning the corner for the Giants and basically that whole team, but I didn't want to have too many Giants on here. I went with the best game, Kyle Schwarber, 4-homer game against the Braves. That was basically all he's done this week, but the Phillies have been winning games. He's got 49 homers, just a fantastic feat. This kind of thing isn't supposed to happen every month, and it is this season.
Yeah. Game of the week definitely will go to Kyle Schwarber. I did go Rafael Devers for the player of the week. He had a more complete week, say, than Kyle Schwarber did. 12 for 23, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 10 RBIs. And I think we're seeing something similar from Giants fans for Rafael Devers and Willy Adames. As soon as they got there, they don't produce. All their fans freak out. They go ballistic and like, oh my God, we've got these guys for 7 years. When they're not, guys that have had just one good year and then go back to being nothing. The Devers and Adames are both players that have had 3, 4, 5 good years in their career. You know what you're getting at that point. And just because they have a rough month or rough couple months to start their tenure with the team doesn't mean they're going to be shit forever. We're seeing that with both those dudes right now. Giants are starting to get hot. Maybe it's too late. Maybe it's not. Who knows with the NL wild card. But Rafi Devers has been great for the Gigantes. On to pitcher of the week.
I may not have had a Giant for my player of the week, but I got to go with Justin Verlander for my pitcher of the week. He had one of the wildest starts of the season, 5-inning shutout with 10 strikeouts and 120 pitches. I think that was against Milwaukee?
Baltimore.
Yeah, they got a weird schedule the past couple of weeks, whatever. Anyways, 40 years old, still killing it, still one of the craziest pitching lines I've seen all season. All the guys on Twitter were talking about it, and another guy who's not supposed to be doing this right now, so I'm going to give him the honors.
Yeah, that was crazy. About as inefficient as you could possibly be. That's like 25 pitches an inning almost at that point. For a guy who's 40 years old, being able to even get through that much is kind of ridiculous. My pitcher of the week, though, I went with the rookie. I went with Luis Morales. 12 and 2/3 innings pitched over 2 starts, 7 hits allowed, 2 earned runs, both coming in to start yesterday against the Cardinals. Only 3 walks and 15 strikeouts for the 22-year-old rookie with the A's. Partially gave this to him because I think he had perhaps the best start of any starter we saw this past week with his 7 shut innings against the Detroit Tigers, where he only allowed 2 hits. Luis Morales, a guy who we thought had some control issues when he first came up and maybe even in his time in the minors, has really dominated ever since he's had that first outing against the Arizona Diamondbacks out of relief. When you give this guy the ball to start, he's shoving for you. He's got great stuff. His stuff moves ridiculous amounts of distance. And he looks to be a guy that could be a top-of-the-line pitcher for the A's for a long time, which is something that they obviously need. Which takes us to the Rookie of the Week.
Yeah, I got to shout out my guy Jonah Tong. Before I even saw the side-by-side comparisons, I went, oh, my God, this is Lincecum. And he had a fantastic first start for the Mets in kind of a dire situation. But I'm going to go with a former Met here. Just got traded. Another Giant, Drew Gilbert. Big homer yesterday, 7 RBIs this week while hitting 600. And kind of a guy that the Mets weren't interested in playing yet. So they shipped him off in that Tyler Rogers trade. Turns out he's pretty good. Former very high pick in the draft, and so far so good with the Giants.
I kept it to Luis Morales here. Maybe it's just me being a homer, but
no. There's a lot of options.
I did go there. I did like Jonah Tong's first outing. I didn't get the chance to watch it, but he's been a prospect I've been kind of enamored with over the past few months, and his rise through prospect rankings and his weird arm slot and all the weird stuff that goes into it. And the fact that he looks like he's like 14 years old is kind of crazy as well, too. I thought it was funny that him and Peyton Tolley debuted on the same day. I saw the memes about that where it's like one kid looks 18 and the other looks 35, but they're both 22 years old.
Yeah.
Regardless, 2 good outings from both those dudes in their debuts. But now we got to get to what we're actually here for today, which is the NFL full in-depth season preview. We're doing it the same way that we have done it the past 5 years. At this point, we'll go division by division, giving record predictions for all 4 teams in each division. Then we'll go to playoff seeding, just list 1 through 7 what we have. Then we'll get to awards, and then finish off with playoff predictions. And that, of course, gets us to the Super Bowl. So we'll start off alphabetical order in the AFC East. Who is finishing last in that division?
Yeah, great way to start it off here. I'm not going with the Jets. I'm going with the Miami Dolphins at 6-11. This team just feels like a complete disaster to me. Tyreek Hill got his captain stricken away from him on his chest. I don't like their coach. Tua is great when he's healthy, but the thing is, the backup this year is Zach Wilson, and if you got him starting 5 games, then they're completely toast. And maybe it's just because I hate them. We'll see where Kyle goes, but I got Miami at the bottom. I don't like their defense either.
Do you have a record prediction?
6-11.
Okay. Miami is also my number 4 seed, and they go 5-12 in my prediction. They go 0-6 within the division, which hurts, of course. Their defense, I don't think, is going to be good. Their offense will have moments. Of course, you got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Darren Waller. Like, there's guys to throw to. But when you can't play any defense at all, I think it's going to be a bit scary. We know what the ceiling is of Tua as well at this point, too. We know he's, probably that level below a Pro Bowl quarterback at this point in his career. So Miami goes 5-12 and gets the last spot in the AFC East. On to the 3 seed.
At the 3 spot, I'm going with the New York Jets, 7-9-1. I have them tying Dallas. It's a joke I've had with Alex this whole offseason. We're going to tie Dallas. We almost beat them with Zach a couple years ago, and it was such a wacky game. And now after the Micah Parsons trade and everything, this isn't a Dallas conversation, and we'll get to that later. Anyway, 7-9-1. The season's all about the new regime. Aaron Glenn with a rookie offensive play caller. They're going to have some surprising games, and then they're going to have games where they go to Jacksonville and just don't show up and get shut out. So we're going under 500, but hopefully everybody takes a step in the right direction and guys get cut when they commit penalties. Let's not keep Michael Clemens out there if he's going to hit a guy late on 3rd and 15 every time. Let's try to change the culture this year. We're not worried about tanking yet. Let's just try to win a couple of games in a row.
My number 3 seed is the New England Patriots in the AFC East. They go 6-11 for me here, so not the greatest record. They go 3-3 within the division. I believe that's 2 wins over Miami and then 1 win over the Jets. I just don't like their offense still. I know they added Travion Henderson, Stephon Diggs, but I really do not think it's there yet for them to be competitive on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense, I expect to be in the top half of the league, but we're going to be on the field as much as they are with a young quarterback on the offensive end. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them to handle. I think Drake May has the ability in him as well, too, to have good seasons, but I just don't think it's quite there yet. Maybe in year 3 for him. But they go 6-11, number 3 spot in the East. Takes us to number 2.
At 2 is where I have the Patriots. Of course, the Bills are going to be number 1. But New England, I have shockingly above 500, 9-8. I have them dominating the division this year, 4-2. And, I have the same worries that you do too. I don't think the offense is a finished product, and I don't think they're going to put up a whole bunch of points. But what they do have is a much better coach and a much better defense, and I think that's enough to win a bunch of games in this division. 9-8. We'll get to seeding later and see where they fall. But I could see them having a kind of a fake sophomore jump up and then maybe come back to normal after next year. I really like their last place schedule, though. That's why they're going 9-8.
Second place team for me is also going 9-8. That's where I have the New York Jets. 3-3 in the division. I assume 2 wins over Miami and then a win over New England. This is an interesting team. A lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but obviously probably lacking in the position that matters most at the quarterback spot. I don't think Justin Fields is guaranteed to fail. I just don't love him if he's the guy that you need to win your team a game when you're down 4 points with 2 minutes left and no timeouts in a game. I think there will be moments with the Jets offense. Obviously, there's tons of playmakers. I think Breece Hall will have a good year, especially with Justin Fields, because of the options right now. It's going to be one less man that's going to have to take care of him or get to take care of him, and will obviously help him there. Defense is good. Obviously, playmakers in all 3 phases or all 3 levels of the defense. But it's the Jets, man. Shit's going to go wrong where shit can go wrong.
Yep.
So 9-8, and just outside of a playoff spot. And then number one, Buffalo Bills. We know this one.
Yeah, it's Buffalo. Not a lot of things are changing, but they finally started to restructure the defense. I have them going 12-5. No issues here. Maybe a loss to the Patriots or Miami down in the heat, but overall they've dominated everybody for about 5 years now.
Number one, the Buffalo Bills. They go 13-4 for me. They go 6-0 in the division. Everything that we've seen from Josh Allen indicates that he's playing just smarter football than what we saw at the beginning part of the year of his career, with still the ability to make such these ridiculous plays. I think the offense is more polished now. In year two for Keon Coleman, year four for Khalil Shakir. Like, all these guys have been there for a while, it feels like now, on this offensive side of the ball. On defense, they had Joey Bosa, which I honestly forgot about for a while. I don't think the defense is going to be crazy good, but it doesn't need to be crazy good because their offense is going to be top 7 group in the league. So Buffalo goes 13-4, claims the AFC East for their 4th straight year.
I think 4.
That sounds about right.
Okay.
On to the AFC North, one of the most interesting divisions of football, but not the number 4 spot. Tell me why the Cleveland Browns are the number 14.
Yeah, Cleveland's at the bottom spot because Joe Flacco is their quarterback, and they have so many issues right now on and off the field. Who's going to be the backup quarterback? Dylan Gabriel didn't look great. They got their second-round pick, Quinshon Judkins, isn't even there right now. Hey, at least Myles Garrett's there, so that'll help them win one game, 1-16.
Wow. I have the Browns going 3-14, 1-5 in the division. I forget what team I have losing to them in the division, but with the AFC North, it's bound to happen once. This team sucks. There is no way around it. The run game isn't there. The pass game, they might have some decent numbers of Joe Flacco, but it's going to be a lot of growing pains, especially when they put in the 2 rookies. I assume probably Gabriel and Shadur start at least one game this year. The defense, outside of Myles Garrett, isn't great either. Potentially the worst offense in the NFL, though, if you're not talking about the Saints. So 3-14 for the Browns. But big step up, though, for this third team. Who do you have here to start off the top 3 in the AFC North?
In the 3 spot, I got Pittsburgh at 7-10. I do have them going 500 in the division, like per usual. The defense they hate everybody. And unfortunately for them, I have the one loss to Cleveland. That'll probably wreck their season if it does happen. But the main thing here is it's Aaron Rodgers. Last season, it was one of the best Jets seasons ever, but we're talking about a perennial playoff team here with Pittsburgh, and I don't think that it's going to work, to be honest with you. I think they got too many characters, and we just saw that what happened over the last 2 years. Rodgers coming off the Achilles, too. It's not going to magically heal. He's not going to move. They're going to have to run out of the shotgun. Just everything gets more complicated when Aaron Rodgers is there, and I don't like it.
I have Pittsburgh going 11-6. Something that we've always seen with Mike Tomlin on teams is that he is very good at silencing the noise. And I think that's something that's huge for this team this year. Obviously, they had DK Metcalf, they had Aaron Rodgers. Of course, they had a ton of rookies as well, too. And I think Mike Tomlin's going to do a better job than what we think in just avoiding the distractions and focusing on football. Aaron Rodgers isn't in New York anymore. He's not going to have that New York media. The same media coverage for Aaron Rodgers is going to be the same media coverage that's covered O'Neal Cruz and all the stuff that he's done in the past couple of years that would have driven a New York media crazy. And it's barely even talked about on a national stage. I think Pittsburgh's going to be fine. They are old. There is that side of it, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But I think their offense has improved. I like Caleb Johnson. I have him going 11-6 and claim the number 3 spot in the AFC North, as well as a playoff spot, which takes us to the number 2 seed.
Yeah, number 2, I'm going with Cincinnati at 9-8. It is going to be a better season, but I don't think it's going to look much prettier than it has been. The defense is still a complete disaster. I just don't think that in kind of a wide open race here for the AFC wildcard this season with all the quarterback change, I think that at the end of the day, you got to bet on Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor in this offense to try to go 500. I do have them making a playoff spot, but it's not going to be pretty.
Number 2 for me is where I slot Baltimore Ravens. They go 11-6. They go 4-2 in the division. Baltimore is going to be great. I don't think an 11-6 record is very indicative of a super good team, but I think Baltimore will be really good. Their schedule is pretty tough. Positioned to make a deep playoff run if they can get into those spots, and I think they have the ability to. So 11-6, but they're better than what the record shows, which takes us to the winner of the AFC North.
Yeah, I'm still rocking with Baltimore at 12-5. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw another repeat of last season where they're just able to pound the rock all game long with Derrick Henry and Lamar. And even bringing in Jair Alexander should help on the defense too. I'm just not ready to give Cincinnati the crown again, I guess, because they were just so bad last year. But let's hear it.
Yeah, Cincinnati 12-5, winners of the division in AFC North. They go 4-2 in the division. And when we watched Joe Burrow play last year, I don't think I've ever seen a QB in more flow state than what I've ever seen with Joe Burrow last year. And, maybe they don't, pick it up right away and go right into it as they did last year. But Jamar Chase is the best best receiver in football. T. Higgins is right up there as well, too. Chase Brown has really gotten a role in that offense over the past 8 games of last season. The defense, might not be great, but it's going to be good enough to win regular season games. They're helped out by a non-first place schedule as well too, so they're not going to see Buffalo in the way that they did, or they do see Buffalo, I'm pretty sure, but they're not seeing those other first place teams that you're used to. So I have Cincinnati going 12-5, and just their strength of schedule being enough for them to get past. And the pick I have has Baltimore's strength of schedule 50 points higher than Cincinnati's. So that just tells you what these teams are playing. Cincinnati's maybe just a product of their environment instead. Which takes us to the AFC South. Not as fun as a division. Number 4.
Yeah. At the bottom, I'm going with Indianapolis at 4-13. A lot of great players on this team, of course, but it's all about the quarterback. Daniel Jones gets to start week 1. Who knows how long that'll last, but as long as that's the case, they're not going to be able to push the ball down the field. I have them at the bottom. They're going to be looking for a new quarterback in the draft, I think, if they don't go back to Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, 3-14 in Indianapolis Colts is what I got. They go 2-4 in the division, though, so 2 out of those 3 wins are within the division, which tracks because this division sucks. Offense, they added Tyler Warren through the draft. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor's still there. Michael Pittman's still there. But the quarterback position, I don't trust any of those 2 guys that they have to get the ball to anybody but Jonathan Taylor because they just have to hand it off there. The defense, I don't think is going to be great either, maybe middle of the pack. And when you got a bottom 3 offense and a middle of the pack defense, you're set up for failure. So Indianapolis, 4 seed, goes 3-14.
All right. At number 3, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans at 8-9, though. So I have them winning a couple more games than Vegas thinks. I really like Cam Ward. I think it's all about trying to get him accelerated, to grow as an NFL player and passer. And I'm excited to see what they do. I just don't really think the playoffs are going to be on their mind yet. But they should be, competing for the division for a while.
I have Tennessee as my number 3 seed as well, too. A bit different than Skyler, though, because I have them going 4-13. I think it's a rough year for Tennessee. I think there's a lot of question marks on the offense. I know Cam Ward says that he has a top 5 receivers core, but he's delusional in that aspect. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball much either with the Tony Pollard that's now starting to get some track on his tires or tread on his tires. The defense, I don't think is going to be great either. Schedule, is easy, but it doesn't really matter when you got all these question marks on your team. So Tennessee goes 4-13, goes 2-4 in the division now, which takes us to the number 2 seed.
At number 2, I have Jacksonville, and they have the same record in my simulation here as Tennessee, 8-9. The difference is, though, they dominate the South, 4-2. I think they're probably going to have a field day with Cam Ward. Outside of that, outside of the games against Tennessee and Indy, they're probably going to have a rough time again. I'll be rooting for those guys. Travis, how much is he going to play on offense versus defense? Brian Thomas, year two. Trevor Lawrence finally has a little bit of help, but I don't like these guys that much. 8 and 9.
Jacksonville is also my number 2 team in the South. They go 8-9 for me as well. 3-3 in the division. I don't hate this team, to be honest with you. I know the run game is a bit complicated, but I think they got 3 backs that you kind of feel confident with when you have them as a whole. And Bashal 2 intake Bigsby and Travis Etienne or Travis.
Travis, yeah.
Okay, just make sure. I've always got it mixed up between those two. I don't know why you name them Trevor and Travis. That's too tough to remember. Anyways, I think the coaching staff has gotten better from last year. I think their GM did a great job in bringing in players for deals as well too on both sides of the ball. It's not a playoff year, but I do think they get close to that spot. So 8-9, just under 500, and just outside of a playoff spot. But number 1 seems to be the team that's been there the past few years.
Yeah, the Houston Texans do it again. 11-6. So I didn't go all out on them. There's some clear issues here. Will Joe Mixon even play at all anymore in the NFL? But the thing is, they got superstars on offense and defense. CJ, 2 Nico Collins. Plus, they drafted a couple guys from Iowa State. Will Anderson on the defense, going to get a lot of sacks this year. Stingley, one of the best corners in the league. They're going to get the job done.
The Houston Texans win the division, of course. For me, they go 12-5. They go 5-1 in the division, and this looks to be one of the best young rosters in the NFL for me. They got 2 superstars on the defensive side of the ball, and Will Anderson and Derek Stingley. They got a quarterback who's going into year 3 at this point and has already made the jump. And if he makes another jump in year 3, as we see so many quarterbacks do, we're looking at a potential MVP candidate. I know there's a bit more moving parts in this offense than what there was in years past. But this main guy that he's thrown to the past 2 years, Nico Collins, is still there. I like the young receivers that they brought in. The run game, probably the biggest question on their team, I'd say. But I think they're going to be good. And I think the Houston Texans cruise to a 12-5 record and winning the AFC South for the 3rd straight year. And then the AFC West, one of the most interesting divisions in football. Who's the number 4 team, Skyler? Don't break my heart.
At the bottom, at 7-10, it's the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that I had a lot of high hopes for, and I think I know what they're trying to do, right? Drafting a Marion Hampton where they did, they're going to try to ground and pound to win this division. The only problem is their best player, Rashawn Slater, is out for the year. I think that's going to wreck what they're doing. The roster's not completely finished. They don't have the type of athletes that the Raiders or the Broncos or the Chiefs do at receiver, and I think it's going to be a down year.
I also have the Chargers finishing last in the division. They go 8-9, 2-4 within the division. I like their offense. I'll say that. I think last year their ground and pound game didn't work as much because it was J.K. Dobbins back there. With the Marion Hampton fresh legs and Najee Harris, who's going to split time back there as well too, I think it'll succeed a lot more this year. I just think the defense has taken a huge step back this year in year 2 under Harbaugh. They lost a ton of different players, namely Joey Bosa, of course. I know Khalil Mack is still there, but it feels like a lot of question marks are on the defensive side right now comparative to last year, which was probably the biggest strength in their defense. So they go 8-9 and obviously miss out on the playoffs. Number 3.
At the 3 spot, I have the Raiders at 8-9. And I did another kind of run through the schedule last week where the Raiders did make the playoffs, but this time around they don't. 3-3 in the division. I think, though, the difference in making the playoffs is going to be one of those Kansas City games, and they've done it before. They obviously can do it. I think it's going to be a really fun team. I just have them just missing out by a game right now.
Number 3 for me is where I slot the Denver Broncos. They also go 8-9, same record as the Los Angeles Chargers. 3-3 in the division. The biggest arguing point against this Broncos team from their playoff spot last year was that they pretty much only beat teams that were bad. And I think that those games last year and getting to the playoffs last year is going to hurt them this year because their strength of schedule is the highest in the division at 529. I just don't see them beating the top tier teams that they're going to play either. So there's losses in there. I still don't think they've handled the run game great. Maybe that's just the Sean Payton offense and what they're doing there. But I think Bo Nix had some issues that maybe didn't show up in interceptions last year that could hurt him this year. I still think he's going to be a great player. But on the defensive side of the ball, definitely a good group there. Just a tough schedule, and I think that's probably the biggest reason on why they don't make the playoffs here and go 8-9. Number 2.
At number 2, maybe the biggest shocker, it's Kansas City. 12-5 Kansas City. And I don't think they're going to have a bad season at all. I think they're going to get the job done, do what they've been doing. Mahomes doesn't care about his numbers. Clearly, he just wants to win. But really, the difference here is the other team. And Kansas City, I have getting swept by the Broncos this season. So we'll get into that.
Number 2 is where I slot the Kansas City now. The Raiders go number 2 for me. They go 9-8, so it's not like it's a big step up over the Broncos or the Chargers. It's just one game. They do go 2-4 in the division, lose both games to the Chiefs, and then split with Denver and the Chargers. But I think the last place schedule just helps the Raiders a ton here. There's games against Cleveland. There's games against all the teams in the South. There's games against New England that we'll see in week 1. And also an NFC game in the Giants. Not just the Giants. There's another team in there I'm blanking about. But I think the schedule is really good for the Raiders this year, especially in the early part of the season where there's probably going to be some struggle with just the growing pains in the offense from a whole bunch of new moving parts. Regardless, though, 9-8 is good enough for a playoff spot, which is noteworthy there. But the number 1 team – Skyler, just go ahead, dude.
Yeah, let me tell you why I have the Broncos. Also 12-5, tied with Kansas City, but they get that tiebreaker, obviously, in my sim here. Basically, I have them sweeping the South. I don't see them losing those games. I think some of their toughest games this season are going to be at home. Like the Cowboys is going to be a big game. They're at home for that one. Green Bay. And kind of like last year, if you don't remember, I picked Green Bay to go 13-4, and it wasn't quite that good, but I just had a feeling that was going to be the top division. And, Minnesota obviously won a lot of games over there too. I think we're going to get the most wins out of the West, and Denver is so much improved that the schedule is going to help them too. And this could easily be the Raiders right up there with them too. But like I said, I picked Denver. And I kind of went all in, right? I could have had them at 9 or 10 wins, but since I think that's going to be the most improved team, I just went for it. First place.
Kansas City goes the number 1 spot for me, and I'm all in on them. 15-2 is the record I have for them. 5-1 in the division. And I think it's just because of this offense, man. I know the run game isn't exactly what it is, but they're the only team in the NFL that I feel confident with, even without a run game, that they will be able to win games consistently because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. And he perhaps has the best supporting cast he's ever had in his time in the NFL. I know Rashee Rice is out for 6 games, but once he comes back, your 1, 2, 3 wide receivers is Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown, with one of the best tight ends ever that we've ever seen to play the game in football, Travis Kelce as your tight end. Like, that's, I think, going to be one of the best offenses in the league this year. Their defense, year in and year out with Spags, is one of the best groups in the league. I don't think they saw any huge losses on the defensive side of the ball either. So give me Kansas City 15-2, and that, of course, is good enough for the 1 seed in the AFC West. Which takes us to the NFC side of the ball now, about 30 minutes in already. We'll start it in the East, as we always do, with the 4-seeded New York Giants.
Yeah, the Giants are going to be at the bottom here, but I do have them at 6-11, a couple games over their projection, because I think there's a lot of great pieces here. It's just not the right coaching staff. Brian Dable and those guys are coaching for their life right now, so we're probably going to see a lot more Russell Wilson than the Jackson Dart fans are going to like. but I think they're headed in the right direction. Just clearly the worst team here in the East.
Yeah, 2-15 for the Giants for me here. They go 1-5 in the division. I think it's a win over the Cowboys or something like that. Team sucks, man. I know they have a good D line. The D line's probably best in the NFL with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. But every other position group on this team sucks. No offense to Javon Holland. Their offense is still severely lacking. I know Malik Neighbors is great. But they still don't have a good quarterback. They still don't have a running back that I feel super confident in. And I think it's going to hurt them this year because they're in a pretty damn good division still, even with Michael Parsons out of it. So Giants go 2-15. Number 3 seed.
At number 3, it's the Cowboys at 8-1. That tie with the Jets. Don't worry, it's the only one I chose. I was just like, how funny would it be if the Jets tied with Dallas early in the season? Clearly in a state of mediocrity right now. We knew this with Schottenheimer getting the job. Great offensive coordinator, but I wouldn't want him as my head coach. I don't think that they're trying to win a championship this year either. They just traded their best player, and that's a whole nother conversation. I think they clearly lose that trade. 8-1, and maybe even move on from a lot of key pieces too after this year.
The Dallas Cowboys are my number 3 seed as well too. They go 5-12 in my simulation, so maybe a bit of a harsh spot here. But I think their defense sucks outside of a few guys, namely the quarterbacks. I think Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs are still pretty solid. Their offense, their passing game, I love. Man, I can't lie.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson. I think it's going to be a good group. But they can't run the ball at all right now. And maybe Jaden Blue is a fun player in a dynamic offense, but this offense isn't dynamic. And I don't think we're going to see a ton of them because they're going to run Javonte Williams out there for the first 6 games of the year. And I think this offense is really going to struggle to get yards outside of the pass game. And when you can't run the ball and you have a shitty defense, it's a recipe for disaster. So they go 5-12, obviously miss out on the playoffs. They go 1-5 in the division, with their only win probably being over the Giants. Number 2.
At the 2 spot, I'm going with the Washington Commanders at 10-7, and kind of the opposite of Dallas and the Giants, right? Of course, like you said, those 2 teams can't run the ball. They can't stop the run either, and that's what the top teams in the division are. Washington is going to, we don't know if it's going to be Bill Krosky Merritt or McNichols from Boise. I hope gets some snaps in there too because he's a good pass catcher. I don't have him dominating though. I have him sneaking in at 10-7 because it's a pretty weak there at the bottom of the division.
Number 2 is where I slot the Washington Commanders. They go 10-7 for me. They go 5-1 in the division, 1 loss going to be into the Eagles, of course. This is an interesting team. I feel like it could be that like partial sidestep that we saw similar to the Texans in year 2 for CJ Stroud.
Sure. Yeah.
I think after such a good year 1 and the expectations being so high, it becomes so easy to disappoint. And I think that's the problem that we see with the Commanders this year. There's a lot more like oh shitness on the offensive side as well too. Zach Ertz is like 37. It feels like Terry McLaurin obviously had a crazy offseason and maybe the focus wasn't exactly there. They do bring in Deebo Samuel, which I think could help for their play calling a little bit. The run game is still pretty unsure now, especially with Brian Robinson out of there. I do like Bill. Give him the ball, please. I drafted him in fantasy. But the defensive side of the ball, I don't love either. So they go 10-7 and actually miss out on the playoffs. And then number 1, the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I got the Eagles at 15-2. This is the best record I picked out of all of them. 1 loss to Washington and 1 week 18 when they sit everybody. I love it. Everyone's coming back. They're going to dominate. They fleece guys in trades every other week. And the defense is going to be even better than the one that completely dismantled Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
Number 1, of course, Philly. I have them going 13-4, so maybe not the highest record. I forget exactly what the losses are. I know 1 is to Washington. They go 5-1 there. there's no reason why this team isn't going to be back in the Super Bowl. I'll just say that right now. Like, they're deep on both sides of the ball. Obviously, if injuries happen, you're going to be fucked. But pretty much every team is fucked if injuries happen, so that doesn't really scare me. Philly's really good. Their defense is dominant. Maybe interesting without Darius Slay, perchance. But I got faith in them. I think they're going to be just fine. Philly goes 13-4, 15-2 to 13-4. I don't stress the difference in that either, unless it's like, 1 seed to 8 seed or some shit like that. But that's not how it is. On to the NFC North, perhaps the best division in football.
Yeah, maybe it was last season. We'll start it off with the Chicago Bears, 7-10. I think they made all the right moves. Ben Johnson should be great for Caleb Williams' development. I just think this division is just so filthy that they're going to end up going around 2-4 in it and missing out on the playoffs because all these other teams should be over 500, you would think.
Chicago Bears, number 4 team for me here. They go 9-8 actually. So every team in this division is over 500. 3-3 in the division. But they do play a tough schedule outside of the division as well too, which I think hurts them. Even with like the last place schedule that they had from last year, I think it's still going to be tough. I think there's strides on this offense. I think Caleb Williams is going to have a great year too. I like DJ Moore. I think DeAndre Swift is primed for a pretty solid year as well. I don't love that they didn't add another back in there. Maybe they like Kyle Monaghan more than what the fantasy projections say right now, which I would like because I drafted him as well. Yeah. But defense, I think, will be solid. Offense, much improved. I think Chicago is going to be looking at a bright future once we get to 2027, 28 time. But on to the number 3 seed.
At number 3, let's go Minnesota at 9-8. I hinted at it earlier. They're still going to go 500 and make the playoffs. I just think there's a little bit of a learning curve with McCarthy coming back. Sometimes, I'm not saying it's going to be him, but sometimes when you have an ACL or a meniscus and you come back, you're just kind of afraid to move around and you're afraid to work on your footwork because you think you're going to tear your knee up again. That's what happened with Zach Wilson. I don't think he's Zach Wilson. I think he's better, and that's why they get back on track and go over 500. But I'd be cautious to start the year with Minnesota.
The team I'm slightly cautious on in this division is the Detroit Lions. I have them going 10-7. They do get a playoff spot. They go 3-3, but they play the hardest schedule in the NFC according to my predictions. And I think that's going to hurt you when you lost your Hall of Fame, not Hall of Fame center, but all pro level center, I'd say. Have injuries on the defensive side of the ball still. Lost your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator. To head coaching spots as well too. It's not like they just like went laterally or something. These are 2 of the biggest assistant coaches that we saw in the league last year. I think Dan Campbell's going to have some problems. And to say I don't believe in the Lions, that kind of hurts because I like watching this Lions team play. I have Jahmyr Gibbs in fantasy as well too, so give him the ball. But I think we're going to see a rough year from Jared Goff, and maybe not expect the Lions to score 50 points every other week. It feels like so. Lions, they still get a playoff spot, but they're not a 15-2 team in my eyes anymore. Number 2.
At number 2, I'm going with Green Bay at 10-7. A little rough in the division for my predictions, 2-4, but just one of those situations where it's such a unique system, right? I feel like the one issue with this team, probably the DBs. They lost Jair Alexander, one of their captains, for a long time, but for the teams outside of the North, they're not going to try to air it out in Wisconsin in the winter. They have a massive advantage there. Micah Parsons, a little back injury, but again, I think that's one of those things everybody knew about. There's like, dude, he's too good to worry about it. Jordan Love's going to be great. I just worry about those receivers. Who are they going to throw the ball to? Maybe Tucker Kraft. I like him a lot. Good O-line. They're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, number 2 for me is where I slept the Green Bay Packers as well. They go 11-6 for me. They go 2-4 in the division. So maybe a bit of a shocker there. I like this team a lot, man. I think I had them starting off 5-0. Their defense is going to be really good. I know Jair Alexander is gone, but he's been hurt for like the last 3 years, it feels like at this point. So I don't even think they were missing him too much in the first place. Obviously, they had Michael Parsons, one of the best defensive players in the league, if not the best defensive player in the league. Offense, of course, I think it's really lacking that X receiver and the guy that you trust to go to on a 4th and 7 for Jordan Love. But I also think that's what makes their offense so good is that you don't know who Jordan Love is looking for at any given moment. And he's got a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball, whether it's Shaden Reed, Matthew Golden, you even mentioned Tucker Kraft. Josh Jacobs is a good pass catcher as well, too. I like Green Bay. I think they succeed this year and get 11-6 and go number 2 in the division. But there's still one team we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, at the top, I'm sticking with Detroit. 12-5. I have them dominating the North this season. And I know that things are going to look different. But in my opinion, I don't see that as a downfall. I see that as maybe an advantage, as teams aren't going to know what to look for with this offense because they still have the same guys, Gibbs, St. Brown, Laporta, everybody. Penei Sewell may just well be the best tackle in football. So I see this as an opportunity for Dan Campbell to grow even higher because he's a guy I think will be with Detroit for a very long time. And if you want to be known as that guy, that perennial postseason every year, then you just got to put those things to the side and keep moving with what you have in the building at that moment. So I have them getting the job done, 12-5. Maybe they won't go to the Super Bowl, but I still have them winning the North.
Number 1 for me, a bit of a flip-flop for me and Skyler here. I have the Minnesota Vikings as my number 1 team. They go 11-6, 4-2 in the division, which is big. They play a tough schedule, but I just got so much faith in Kevin O'Connell, man. And after we saw Sam Darnold succeed out of nowhere last year, I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a really good football player. And I think that year of him not playing, well, obviously, you want to see him play. I think he could help him in the long run because he got to understand an offense for a year. He got to see the very prototype of it as well too, where it's Sam Darnold who's kind of like that head dumb, arm smart type quarterback, and JJ McCarthy feels a lot more head smart than Sam Darnold. So I think Minnesota succeeds. I still think their defense has a ton of playmakers on it. They go 11-6, win the division, same record as the Packers, but because of their divisional record, they get the 1 spot, and obviously make the playoffs as well too. On to the NFC South, starting off with the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints are going to be at the bottom of the NFC this season, 1-16, same as Cleveland. Just because if we don't know who your quarterback is, it's hard to pick games week by week. And maybe I'm being harsh here. They do have great players on their team. It's just not a great team vibe right now. I think Kellen Moore could be the guy, but I also think that they have Garrett Nussmeier circled in a whiteboard in the room like, okay, let's just get this guy and then we'll figure out what our offense is going to be. I don't think they're worried about this year with Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, whoever. They're not going to win a whole lot of games.
Yeah, New Orleans Saints, number 4 for me, 1-16. This team is really bad. 1-5 in the division, so I think that win came against the Bucks, I want to say. Blanking on who it was, but regardless, worst team in football in my eyes. There's a real chance at 0-17 here. The quarterback position is severely lacking. The defense is severely lacking. The coaching obviously is young as well too, so you don't know exactly what you're going to get there from Kellen Moore as the head coach. Alvin Kamara is starting to get old. Feels kind of crazy to say that now at this point, but he is, especially with the tread on his tires. So New Orleans goes 1-16, worst team in football. Number 3.
At number 3, I got the Panthers at 5-12. Sorry, Alex. I just don't think this is the team. Bryce Young finished really strong last year, but he also got benched last season, 1 season ago. So what is stopping this new regime who didn't even draft this guy from pulling the plug again if he starts off slow? That's all. I'm not trying to be a hater. I just think that they're playing some tough divisions, right? The South, an already weak conference. They play the NFC West and the AFC East, some tough places to travel, and I don't think they're going to have high records. So Carolina, 5 wins, maybe even looking for another quarterback. But really, just get some O-line, guys. Ika Mekwanu is already potentially out with an appendectomy. So tough start for the offense.
I have Carolina as number 3. I have them going 6-11, so not as bad, but still bad. 2-4 in the division. I think the offense will have its moments, but again, I don't think it's a very complete offense. I think they'll be in more games, which helps them, especially at the early part of the year. But the defense is still bad, no matter how much money that they spent. It's still not a good group. Still, probably not going to get outside of the bottom 10. That is on the defensive side of the ball. I'd like to see a year 3 jump from Bryce Young. I think that'd be fun. But I just don't think it happens. I think he plays kind of around that Tua level of football. Number 2.
At number 2, I got the Falcons, 9-8. So above 500, massive jump from what we've seen. You know, the offense should be a little better with Michael Penix. The defense, you would hope, with Raheem Morris would get better. I just don't think they have the best roster in the division right now. Of course, not the conference. 2-4 in the divisions where it really bites them. I think that they just don't match up well against even some of the worst teams in the league. So I'm a little hesitant, even though I do like Michael Penix.
Number 2 for me is where I slot the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They go 9-8, play the toughest strength of schedule in the division. They go 4-2 in the division, so that helps. But just outside of it is where it hurts them. They missed the playoffs. I think the defense is starting to get a little old in some spots. The offense, I still think, is going to have a good year. I think Baker Mayfield's going to put up another good season. But I think it's just not quite good enough in the NFC. That could be a pretty good conference this year. But number 1 in the NFC South.
So, yeah, I've Tampa Bay at the 1 spot again, but I do have them taking a step back. 9-8. The difference is I have them going 5-1 in the division. So that is a massive tiebreaker over Atlanta for me. That's pretty much the only division. The injuries suck, but I still like Todd Bowles. I still like Baker. I think that they drafted very well, and they have by far the best offensive line in this division. So I'm going to give them the tiebreaker over the Falcons. That
number 1 is where I have the Falcons. They go 10-7 for me. They go 5-1 in the division. They do play a pretty weak schedule. But regardless, I think this team is pretty good. I like what they did this past year with really giving the reins to Penix and, confirming he is a starter there. Bijan, I think, is going to have a solid season. I'm not looking at Kyle Pitts or anything like that, but I do think this offense will put up points. The defense had an interesting year last year, some good moments, some bad moments. I think another year of Jesse Bates is going to help them as well, too. AJ Terrell. I think it's just good enough in the South, pretty much the biggest thing. If I put this team in the North, they're probably under 500. But since they're playing the Panthers twice and the Saints twice, that's 4 wins I pretty much got to pencil in for them. So they go 10-7 and win the division, which brings us to a division that's pretty damn tough and could honestly go any which way 1 through 4 for all 4 teams. The NFC West. Who do you got at number 4?
Yeah, we'll start off with Arizona at 7-10. I think they're doing a lot of things right on offense. They even drafted some guys I like on defense too, helping on the D-line. They got kind of a steal in Will Johnson. We'll see if he can play the whole season. But really, I just don't like their head coach, Jonathan Gannon. I think we've seen the best from Kyler Murray already, and there's not much more to go here. Marvin Harrison hasn't looked as good as Neighbors and some others, and I think they're the odd man out here, 7-10.
I also have Arizona as my last place team. I think that's probably the easiest decision here. They go 7-10 as well. They go 2-4 in the division, so not terrible. They also play the hardest schedule out of anyone in the division, which is saying something here considering some of the other teams' strength schedules. Offense, I think, is solid. The defense is just bad. That's the real thing of it. So I'm not going to get too much into the details because these other teams are more interesting to me.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Yeah, we'll start off the big 3, if you will, here in the West with San Francisco at 9-8. I don't have them making the postseason. And the Niner fans are going to hate me. They're going to remind me it's such an easy schedule. But I mean, dude, we got a massive roster rehaul here in San Francisco. They got two healthy active receivers on the entire roster right now. The defense is just straight up not going to be that good. I know they got Bob Saleh back. That should help if he doesn't have to focus on the New York media because, I don't dislike the guy. I just don't think that he was meant for New York. So an overachieving season, I think, based off of non-Niner fan standards, but still not as good as the other two teams. 9-8.
Number 3 for me is where I have the Los Angeles Rams. They go 10-7. They're 3-3 in the division. I still like the Rams, even with that 10-7 record. I think if they were in a playoff spot in playoff games, this is a team that you think has a chance to win the Super Bowl. We saw that last year in Philly. They were pretty much the only team that felt like they kind of had a chance against them in the playoffs. The offense is good. It's better, honestly, I'd say as well, too, with Devontae in there now instead of Cooper Kupp. Defense is young and fun as well, too. I think it's a 10-7 year, but unfortunately just not good enough to make the playoffs, which hurts them a lot here. Number 2.
At number 2, I got the Rams, also 9-8, also 3-3 in the division. I have their defense just kicking the snot out of the Niners and the Cardinals this year, so they get a tiebreaker over them. I just don't think they're the number 1 team. I think that Matt Stafford's injury questions are obviously we've seen him play through some crazy stuff through his career, but he's an old man now, and you just know they got to be looking for somebody after wondering if this guy's even going to make it to practice the next day. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned, even though it wouldn't shock me if they did win 10 games. I have them just at 9 for now.
Number 2 for me is where I slapped the Seattle Seahawks. They go 10-7, 4-2 in the division, the best record in division of any team in this division. I like Seattle. I'm curious to see how Sam Darnold plays without Kevin O'Connell. I think there might be some interesting spots there, but I think their defense is good enough to hold him into a playoff spot. The 10-7 for them is good enough for a playoff spot. And the winner of the NFC West.
Yeah, I'm going with Seattle. 11-6 for me. Also 4-2 in the division. And like you said, their defense is going to be flying. I think they've been making really good draft picks. I think Mike McDonald is the right guy there. Sam Darnold's going to have his questionable moments, of course, but I'm going to take them over the aging Rams and the injury crushed Niners. And I don't think that Rams Niners game is going to be the final game in this division because I got Seattle a game over both of them, getting the job done in a division. And we'll see. I mean, the Milroe aspect is pretty cool too. I don't think that there's going to be a chance that he becomes the guy just this season, but just to go out there for a couple plays, that'd be something cool. Maybe a little Taysom Hill package for him. I think that's going to be really hard to stop. They got a good power run game. I like.
Yeah, just put him in the shotgun on a 4th and 1 with Walker to his left and Charbonnet to his right. It'll be a fun little trio you got there. My number 1 in the NFC West is going to be the Niners. They go 11-6 for me, 3-3 in the division. But they play by far the easiest schedule out of any team in the NFL. It's like by 20 percentage points, or not percentage points, but you know what I'm talking about. It's 419, their strength of schedule. I think the next closest is 439. The offense, I don't think is going to be terrible. I know the injuries on the wide receiver spot and just not really having anybody is going to hurt them. But I don't think it's going to hurt them that much because I still like Brock Purdy. And I think he's going to have a good season even with George Kittle. I think CMC hopefully has a healthy year. Maybe that's just me being hopeful. But if he does have a healthy year, or even if he doesn't, I don't think the run game is going to be bad with Kyle Shanahan. The defense, I think Bob Saleh coming back helps them a lot. I know they lost a lot of key names, and that, of course, hurts. But what we've seen from the Niners pretty much every year except for last year on the defense side of the ball is they have random dudes make plays for them. And I know, Bob Saleh, isn't, the cure-all for everything here. But I think it's going to be good enough. Their schedule obviously super helps them, and they get a divisional win. Surprisingly, with going 3-3 in the division, so that takes us to the playoff seeding. Go ahead and list your 1 through 7 in the AFC. We'll start with that.
All right, in the AFC, we got Denver with the bye, shockingly. Number 2, Baltimore winning the North. 3, Buffalo. And number 4 is Houston. My wild card teams are going to be with the 5 seed Kansas City, 6, Cincinnati, and 7 sneaking in is the Patriots at 9-8.
Number 1 for me in the AFC is the Kansas City Chiefs going 15-2. Number 2 for me is where I slot the Buffalo Bills. 3 is where I slot the Cincinnati Bengals. 4 is the Houston Texans. And then for the wild cards, it's a 5-seeded Baltimore, a 6-seeded Steelers team, and a 7-seeded 9-8 Raiders team that sneaks in. On to the NFC side.
Yeah, with the bye, it's the 15-win Eagles for me. The other division winners, the Lions, number 2. Seattle, number 3, and it's Tampa sneaking in number 4 with the home game. The wild card teams, number 5 will be Washington, 6 Green Bay, and 7 Minnesota does get in with JJ McCarthy.
For the NFC, number 1 for me is Philly, 2 is Minnesota, 3 is the Niners, 4 is Atlanta, and then my wild cards are Green Bay, Detroit, and Seattle. So that means no Rams, no Commanders. And I think for me, at least, the NFC feels deeper than the AFC, but the AFC feels more top-heavy with Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, all really being teams that could win the Super Bowl. But that takes us to our award predictions now before we do the playoffs. Let's go ahead and do it from the backwards point of view, like it is the NFL Honors show here. So starting off with the Coach of the Year, who's winning Coach of the Year?
Yeah, I like Mike McDonald here if Seattle wins the division. But I also think in my situation, if Denver is the number 1 seed in the AFC, you got to go with Sean Payton. I think they might have the best roster in that what may be the toughest division in football. So plus 2,000. If you also think they could beat Kansas City, maybe I'm just a crazy person. Sean Payton would win it.
Coach of the Year for me, I will Kevin O'Connell. I know he's kind of just been in that race for the past 3 years at this point. But I think if he wins that division with the pretty much rookie quarterback and JJ McCarthy, I think he deserves it again. So Coach of the Year, Kevin O'Connell. Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson. This is another one. I think Vegas has it right here. The heart and soul of a Lions team that really missed him in the postseason last year. And I think only McCaffrey could take this one from him because this guy just broke his leg and almost came back at the end of the year.
I decided to go with JJ McCarthy here for Comeback Player of the Year. They win the division, and he's a quarterback, so the quarterback bias, I think, perhaps helps them here. I don't disagree with like an Aiden Hutchinson pick or a CMC pick, but I think if Minnesota wins the division, JJ McCarthy is probably going to have to play pretty damn good football as well too. I think that's good enough to get him the Comeback Player of the Year. Now a new one, the Protector of the Year. The NFL Honors said they would realize this award this upcoming year. So Protector of the Year. I don't know how they're going to do stats for this one because it just feels like there's not a ton of stats for linemen. So I'm curious, like what like the just like casual fans are going to call this, or like how they're going to base this award. But who do you have?
So I went with Jordan Mailata, plus 1,100, 6'8" mauler, about to enter his prime, most likely an All-Pro again. And the Eagles are one of those teams that like to show off the O-line every week. So maybe they get the exposure that they need for this new award. If you are someone who doesn't really know how to determine O-line, how about the team that gets the most yards and doesn't give up any sacks? That's probably going to be Philly. And he does play left tackle too. So maybe we're just reaching here, but I think a left tackle is more likely to get this than a right tackle, at least for the first year.
Protector of the year for me, maybe the favorite. I haven't looked at the odds, but I did go Penei Sewell here. I think how they use him, especially in the run game. I know it's not Ben Johnson there anymore, but I still think he's going to be involved. Penei Sewell, protector of the year for me. On to defensive rookie of the year.
I think it's going to be Abdul Carter, especially after what happened in their preseason game with the Jets. He seems like the kind of guy who is going to take an experience like that and make it personal and take it out on every quarterback in the NFC.
I also have Abdul Carter here for my defensive rookie of the year. Maybe it could be tough with them going 2-15 in my simulation. Maybe not the enough ability to get sacks, but I still think he probably gets close to 10. I think he's effective in the run as well, too. This guy's a stud. We've known this for a long time. Probably the best true talent in the draft. So defensive rookie of the year, Abdul Carter it is. Offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Cam Ward over Genty. I think they're both really good and both elevated some average teams in college, but like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans were alive in the South up until December before they fall apart. So this is the one I think the quarterback position will help Cam Ward out. Unless Ashton Genty does what he did last year and gets like 1,400 yards or something.
Offensive rookie of the year for me. I started off. I don't think JJ McCarthy counts here.
Yeah.
I do think if you were to count for some reason, if it goes into that weird Ben Simmons scenario, then he would probably get it. But Ashton Genty is the rookie of the year for me. I have the Titans going 4-13, so maybe that plays a part in the Raiders being a playoff team. If that happens, then Ashton Genty is probably at least 1,000-yard rusher. I think 1,400 yards is still in the realm of possibility as well, too, with him. Super fun runner. We saw it in preseason game against the Niners where he actually finally got a little bit of burn to those runs. And he was fun to watch, man. The ability to bounce off tackles and excel off of that is truly there for him. And I think that's probably the thing that I was concerned about, maybe if you're going into the NFL for him. But I don't think I'm concerned at all on his talent level. Ashton Genty's a stud, and he is my offensive rookie of the year. Which takes us to the deep boy.
Yeah, when we were trying to predict these awards like 5 years down the line, this was the year I had saved for Max Crosby. And there are tons of breakout options like Will Anderson, Jared Verse, along with even more veterans. But I think people kind of forgot about Max Crosby after his injury last year. If he sets a new career high in sacks, if he goes to 15 or higher, I think at plus 1,600, you have a very nice pick here.
I hope so. That'd be cool. My defensive player of the year is a position that doesn't usually get a ton of love when it comes to this. I went with the D tackle Jalen Carter, not the Jets player there. I think Jalen Carter's a stud, and I think he has enough stat sheet impact to be recognizable in this award. I think he's about plus 2,000 right now, plus 2,200. Maybe he adds in like a pick six in there or something like that gets in this award. But he's a disruptor. He affects every single game, regardless of what you're trying to do. Run or pass, he's dominant. We knew this guy in college that he was going to be a guy that really has a chance to win this award, and I think he gets it this year for the Eagles. Offensive player of the year.
I don't think anyone would be shocked if Saquon has a repeat of last season because it's really a perfect fit for him in Philly, but I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. A lot of people are fading the Lions this year. The coordinators are leaving. They were a big part of that team, but the same players are there, the same head coach. And like I hinted at earlier, I think the new play callers are going to really have to rely on their big guys, Gibbs, St. Brown. So if this year they're finally going to take off the training wheels for Jahmyr Gibbs, I think we could see something special, some kind of ceiling here that even Bijan Robinson can't reach. So maybe less touches, but I do have Jahmyr Gibbs.
Offensive player of the year for me. I went with Justin Jefferson. I kind of struggled to pick this award. I think Justin Jefferson is not really the popular pick right now either. But I think there's a lot of big play potential in this Minnesota offense, and I think there's enough around him as well too, to where he's just not like auto doubled every single play, and there's going to be some breaks in the action for him to get in there for these deep plays. Big time touchdown guy as well too. I think JJ McCarthy, seeing a year of him on the sidelines and saying, "Oh wow, you just put the shit in the radius and he's going to catch it regardless." He's good enough for me. So just throw it to him every single play. Why not? Justin Jefferson, I think he's going to have a huge year and be a big part of why the Vikings win the NFC North. And then the MVP, the main event of this segment, at least, until we get to the playoff predictions. Who's winning the most valuable player for the NFL?
My MVP is going to be Lamar Jackson. Unsurprisingly, the favorite right now, plus 490 after his ridiculous season. And I would imagine if he's anywhere close to 40 touchdowns, 1,000 on the ground like last year, he's going to beat out Allen and Mahomes again. This would be his third, kind of making him an all-time great after that. And I really think that's possible because we've never really seen this kind of athlete at quarterback. And I think he probably deserves to have three of them.
Yeah, he deserves to have three of them right now already, considering how it went last year. No shade to Josh Allen.
No.
My MVP is Patrick Mahomes. I have him going 15-2, like I mentioned earlier. And I think just all the tools that he has accessible on his offense and how quick he gets the ball out of his hand and how familiar he was with all those targets on his offense now, it's going to be like those years in 2018, 2019, but different. And not in the sense that he's going deep every single play. Like, we're not seeing that Tyreek Hill as Chiefs anymore, but we're seeing a Mahomes that is smart as ever, as accurate as ever, and has the playmakers on his team that can get by guys after they catch the ball too. And no run game either that I think is going to take up some of those touchdowns. I think we could look at a 4,040 touchdown season from him. I think that's good enough, especially if they go 15-2.
That's one of those ones. I think he's got to know what's going on with his numbers, and he's got to really want to get it again just to shut everybody up. Because he's so good, he doesn't have to go for the MVP. Yeah. But I do like your pick. I mean, this is the lowest his odds are going to be maybe in his entire career.
Yeah. And I definitely think there is that, like, he obviously doesn't give a shit about it at this point. He's past MVPs. This is, like, greatest player of all time scenario for Patrick Mahomes. But I think he's just good enough in general to not even try for an MVP season and still end up with it in his hands at the end of the year. But anyways, playoff predictions, fun part here. We will go starting off with let's just do the whole AFC, then we'll come back to the NFC and do it that way. Okay. So starting off AFC wildcard weekend, 7-2, 3-6, and 5-4. What are the games and who's winning?
All right, we'll start off the first one, 2-7, New England going to Baltimore. This was a really fun one in the 2000s and even into the 2010s. And New England usually got the upper hand, but there's no Tom Brady in this one. It's Drake May. So Baltimore's going to run the crap out of the ball in this one and beat him. Keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, 3-6, Cincinnati's going to Buffalo. Another one we've seen a couple times. I just don't think that Cincinnati is going to be that top dog that even you are hoping for this season. So I got Buffalo in this one at home. That's a big one. My 4-5 is going to be really fun. That's Kansas City, like for the first time in years going on the road in a playoff game. But it's indoors at Houston. So they're going to get the job done in that one. Yet to see Houston win the big one. So I can't pick them yet.
My AFC wildcard schedule starts off with the Raiders going to Buffalo. And I have the Las Vegas Raiders getting the shit beat out of them, unfortunately. And Buffalo moving on. That would be a game I would not look forward to. I'll look forward to it because it's a playoff game for the Raiders. Anyone's good for me. But probably in the cold, or definitely in the cold. Probably in the snow. For Geno Smith, who's a quarterback who's not that type of guy, It's going to be tough. So Buffalo gets the win there. My 6-3 is Pittsburgh going to Cincinnati. Divisional matchup here, fun one. I think Cincinnati's good enough to pull this off, and they do. And then 5-4 is where I have Baltimore going to Houston. I don't think Houston's good enough to take down Baltimore. I'll say that. Even with, I think Houston having a good year, they go 12-5. Baltimore is really damn good. They have the ability to pretty easily play mistake-free football on the offensive side as well too, considering Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. So I have Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Baltimore moving on to the divisional round. Go ahead with your divisional round in the AFC.
All right. Well, we got to talk about the top dogs for me, Denver first, because Denver is hosting Kansas City. This will be their third time playing. And I think in this one, Sean Payton's going to realize that even though they got the 1 seed, that doesn't mean shit when you're going up against Andy Reid. They're going to take care of business and beat Denver. In the other game, 2-3, of course, it's Buffalo going to Baltimore in this one. Flip a coin, man. But I kind of feel like they're going to be an every other year type of rivalry, not like not like Peyton getting Cincinnati every single year or something like that. So I'm going to have Baltimore winning this year. I think Baltimore is even better than last season. I still like Derrick Henry, and I'm not going to be afraid to give him the ball every play, even if he is over 30 now. So I have Kansas City and Baltimore in the championship game.
My divisional round is what I would probably consider the core four in the AFC. I have Baltimore going to Kansas City to start off. Should be a phenomenal game. Just both those two teams, obviously Super Bowl winning aspirations from both quarterbacks. One is a winner, one hasn't gotten to the Super Bowl yet. But regardless, fun game. Kansas City gets the victory there. And then 3-2, Cincinnati versus Buffalo. A fun matchup whenever we get to see it. Two great quarterbacks. In Buffalo this time, though, which I think is huge, and that's enough for the Bills to get the victory here, which sets up Kansas City at Baltimore for you, and Buffalo at Kansas City for me in the AFC Championship.
So this game is in Baltimore, of course. And, if Kansas City wins 15 games, then I get it. I'm wrong. This scenario would never happen. But in this situation, I think playing all these games on the road is going to finally catch up to Kansas City. So I'm doing it. I'm picking against Kansas City. Baltimore's going to the Super Bowl. This is the Lamar Jackson scenario here for the full in-depth NFL preseason preview. Lamar Jackson goes to the Super Bowl with the 2-seeded Ravens. I think it's finally time to see somebody else win the AFC.
Famous last words. Number 2, Buffalo going to number 1, Kansas City. Give me Kansas City. I don't care. It's like there's the smart football perspective of it, and then there's the vibes perspective of it as well too. And after so many years in a row where Buffalo's just lost to Kansas City when it matters, beat them when it didn't matter in the regular season, I think it's just such a mental hurdle at this point. And I think if they do get past Kansas City, great, they're winning the Super Bowl. But I don't think that Josh Allen has the ability to be Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I just don't think that's how it is. Buffalo's seen eras like this before as well, too, which is just things repeat themselves in sports. That's just how it goes. And Kansas City gets to the Super Bowl once again because that's what they fucking do. On to the NFC wild card, and things get more open again. 7-2, 3-6, and 4-5. What do you got?
Yeah, 7-2 is going to be a divisional matchup for me. Minnesota going to Detroit. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm not really worried about Detroit at all, despite all the changes. I think that they're going to give the rookie quarterback, or second year, I guess, McCarthy, some trouble in this one. So they're going to move on to the next round. They're going to play the winner of 3-6. That's Green Bay going to Seattle. And I kind of shocked myself with this one. I'm going with Seattle. That's just a really tough place to play. And it's been a couple years, right? It's been a couple years since they've had a home game in the playoffs like this. But I wouldn't want to go there, man. Green Bay is just a different vibe than Seattle. So kind of an upset, I guess, for the home team. And then 4-5, I'm going to pick Tampa to beat Washington. We both kind of hinted at we don't really believe in Washington this season. They just kind of have an easier path to the 5 spot. So I'm going to have Baker winning a playoff game.
NFC wildcard for me, 7-2 is Seattle going to Minnesota. Fun game, but I think Minnesota's good enough here to get a victory. 6-3 is Detroit going to number 3, San Francisco. I think it's a good enough draw for the Niners where they get by here as well, too. So they move on against Detroit's defense, which I think could suffer a little bit this year. And then 5-4 is Green Bay going to Atlanta. Rematch of the 2016 NFC Conference title game, I think. Regardless, that's so random. I have Green Bay winning this game here in Atlanta. Jordan Love and that team is good enough to beat the Falcons even when the Falcons are at home. So I have Minnesota, SF, and Green Bay moving on to the divisional round with the Eagles.
All right. My 1 seed here is Philadelphia, of course. They're going to host Tampa Bay. And just like every single year, other than the 1 year with Tom Brady, the Philly, I almost called them the Phillies. Philly should dominate Tampa Bay. They don't really belong in this round, even though their division helps them get here. And the other game, it's Detroit hosting Seattle. And again, man, I wasn't sure if I was going all in on Detroit necessarily, but they end up getting a pretty good side of the bracket here. I think at home they could beat Seattle with Sam Darnold. Again, that's a guy I probably wouldn't trust to start a game like this. So Detroit, Philly, again.
In the NFC divisional round for me, I have Green Bay going to Philly to start off Philly's playoff run. The Eagles win that game there. And then I have number 3 SF going to number 2 Minnesota. A very fun game, but it's a young quarterback with the chance to get to the NFC Championship game. And I think the Niners' experience just helps them. And they win the game here as a 3 seed. They get to the NFC Championship game for a chance to get to the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. So, of course, I got the rematch, Philly and Detroit. And much like last time they played, I think Philly's going to score way too many points on these guys. And Philly easily gets back to the Super Bowl. Another one, maybe we look back on the season and go, really? You guys, picked them again? But I think it's got to be Philly out of the NFC right now.
Is that a rematch at all? We never saw Detroit.
They didn't play in the regular season?
In the regular season? I'm not sure.
Maybe
they did.
I may have
they
the
probably
wrong
did.
year.
First place schedule. They probably did.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, for my NFC Championship game, I have the Niners going to the number 1 seeded Philly. Big time narrative game, I'd say. But Philly just kicks the shit out of them. It doesn't really matter who's there for the Niners right now. I think Philly's just better. And they move to the NFC, or not the NFC Championship game. They move to the Super Bowl, where I have Kansas City versus Philly. How does your Super Bowl play out, Skyler?
Yeah, it's actually a really good matchup. I like the idea of Lamar against Jalen Hurts, kind of the battle for who do we rank higher right now, because Jalen Hurts gets a lot of crap. But I think in this matchup, no Kansas City, Philly's got to be ecstatic, man. So Philly would win back-to-back. Again, I didn't even pick a winner of my conference games until after we finished talking about our preview. So I was kind of doing this on the fly. Maybe that's why I didn't pick Kansas City. But this is a great matchup for Philly. Baltimore can't really stop the run as well as Kansas City can. Got Philly.
My Super Bowl rematch last year feels like it's always just a rematch when we do this, but it's tough to pick new teams in the NFL because it doesn't really happen too often. But I have Kansas City versus Philly, and in this matchup, I have the Chiefs winning it all. Maybe a bit of a shock there considering the Super Bowl last year, but I think Mahomes, one of the worst games we've seen him play, I'd say, even though he didn't play that bad in the Super Bowl, just got all out beat by that Philly defense. I think he is ready for that now at this point. And if it came to the Super Bowl, he's not going to let it happen again. Kansas City's defense again could just kind of get beat. I know they stopped Saquon well in Super Bowl last year, but everything else kind of lacked. I think obviously need to see some sort of hybrid within that, but I got the Chiefs win it all, and I have Patrick Mahomes as my Super Bowl MVP.
All right. If I had to pick an MVP, it would probably be Jalen Hurts. I think that's a
That
pretty
makes
safe
sense.
bet. By the way,
Yeah.
I looked it up, and the Lions' first year going over 500 with Hurts was the matchup, not last year, not 2 years ago. Just one more.
Okay.
38-35, though. Yeah.
Maybe I'd like to see something like that again.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to the second half. College Football Week 2 preview. Not as fun as Week 1 or not as fun as the NFL in-depth full season preview.
No, not as fun, but there are a couple games I think on Saturday everyone should go tune into. We'll start off the big game day. That's number 15 Michigan going to number 18 Oklahoma. Both quarterbacks looked really good in their debuts. Bryce Underwood for Michigan, the true freshman, shockingly perfect. And it was New Mexico State, but Oklahoma didn't play anybody either. They killed somebody last week, like Eastern Illinois State or something. And John Mateer had 3 or 4 touchdowns. So great battle. I'm going to take Oklahoma at home against a true freshman. But either way, this is a pretty big early matchup for playoff seeding. After that, we got a little rivalry in the morning, actually. It's Iowa's going to number 16, Iowa State. Iowa State won that sloppy game in Ireland to start the year against their rivals, but this is a real rivalry game. Iowa, not ranked, but I don't even know what to say, man. I'm expecting like 17-14 maybe in this one. Another high-scoring one, SMU is going to play Baylor. Baylor kind of disappointed against Auburn last week, but their quarterback went off for 400, Sawyer Robertson, like I expected to happen. SMU, Kevin Jennings, first game this year where they have to try to keep up with somebody. So I'm a little intrigued. Oregon's playing Oklahoma State. Another situation where it's just like, hey, at least it's not Portland State or who was it last week? Montana State against Oregon. We can see Oregon's new quarterback against an actual team. And then the game I'm really looking forward to, maybe the most exciting, Florida, number 13, is hosting South Florida. They didn't get ranked after killing Boise. But I'll tell you one thing, their quarterback, Byron Brown, comes back from the ACL, and he was just running everybody over. So if there's any team in the South, not in a top conference, physical enough to play with Florida, it's probably South Florida. And they also play Miami later in the year, so that's going to be really fun. So not as many top-tier ranked games, but still some interesting stuff to build up narratives and awards.
Nice. Which takes us to the Layups bowl predictions this episode. Last week, Layups were kind to us. I had Oregon minus 29.5 versus Montana State. I think they won by 55 or something like that. So we were good there. Skyler had number 3 Ohio State minus 2.5 versus number 1 Texas. That did hit in what was a pretty boring game for most of the time, but was good enough there for Skyler to go green. This week, NFL picks are back. I have the Cincinnati Bengals minus 4.5 versus the Cleveland Browns opening week in Cleveland. I don't think it matters. Give me them by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, similar strategy over here. I'm taking the Cardinals. Maybe they'll have a down year, sure, like we predicted. But 6.5, I'll take a touchdown in New Orleans. Spencer Rattler, you would really hope that even though the Cardinals have a rough-looking defense, that a defensive-minded head coach could manage the defense against Spencer Rattler. You would hope so.
Yeah. Last week, bowl predictions were not kind to us, but it was a pretty crazy week in college football. Regardless, I had Notre Dame minus 10 versus Miami. The line was originally like 2.5 or whatever. Doesn't go there because Miami wins the football game. And Skyler had UCLA over Utah.
Utah's back, man. Utah's back.
Nico is not. Anyways, this week I have Atlanta over Tampa Bay plus 115. Atlanta beat them twice last year. I think they got better. I think Tampa maybe got worse. So give me Atlanta plus 115 over Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I got to apologize to the Utes. They have two tackle prospects projected to go in the first round. And I kind of, in my mind, was like, yeah, sure, they're ranked there right now, but you got to prove it to me. And they just dominated in the run game against UCLA. Nico had no chance. But like I said, we're going back to the NFL. I want some of that Monday night football game. Chicago over Minnesota plus 110. Um, we'll see. Rookie head coach here with the young quarterback, but we got an actual rookie quarterback on Minnesota, JJ McCarthy. I'm predicting they start off slow, so let's have Chicago win in a tough, close divisional game.
That's going to do it for episode 259. Next week, 260, we'll recap week one. Probably not go over all the games, but we'll definitely talk about the big narratives. We'll get back to MLB as well, too, power ranking, stuff like that.
Yep.
College football prep for week 3 as well, too, which is always fun as we start to ease back into conference play. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week, episode 260. Skylar, any parting notes as we embark onto a 6th year?
Let's have a great season. Hopefully both of our teams don't completely collapse like we tend to do sometimes, and we just try to play some 500 ball and see what happens at the end of the year.
Yeah, hopefully they both overperform. We don't play each other this year, so we can kind of root for each other, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Next week.